Welcome back to Nights with Chris Boyle. Joining me now is Mississippi State Congressman Dan Eubanks. Congressman Eubanks, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It's great to be here with you, Chris, and all of your viewers.
Absolutely. So you're a Mississippi congressman. You're running for Senate. I want to get into your Senate race in a minute because it's obviously very important. You're not just running for state Senate, but U.S. Senate. But I want to ask you first about your background with the Dobbs decision. So folks at home know you are one of the people behind the law that was ultimately challenged that led the way to the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. Tell folks a little bit about that and how it plays into your political philosophy.
Absolutely. I've been pro-life since day one. Before I got into public service, I was a youth and young adult pastor for the better part of 20 years, a business owner before I felt called into ministry. And I felt like I had to do something. In that pull, I couldn't escape it, and ran for office. And lo and behold, I got elected, beat the incumbent. And one of the goals that I had was to end abortion in our state. And so I was a co-author of the bill that ultimately went to the U.S. Supreme Court, the Dobbs decision, like you were saying, that overturned Roe v. Wade. And I was blessed to actually be there. I see you're showing some footage. In front of the U.S. Supreme Court building the day that they made the ruling and announced it. And I got to say, it was probably one of the best days of my life.
And was that one of the reasons, did you feel that the Dobbs decision, was that sort of a sign for you, almost a sign from God, as this was your opportunity, your time to run for Senate? Was that one of the decision-making points for you? Well,
you know, entering in the whole process, it was one of those things where I just couldn't escape the pull. And I was like, I got to do something, prayed a lot about it. And I just felt like that's what God was calling me to do. So I stepped into it, saw him move in big ways throughout my campaign, defeated an incumbent, and lo and behold, I found myself there. And then throughout the last 8 years of my public service, I've seen him show up in a lot of other big ways. I had another bill that I was a co-author of that was a religious freedom protection bill. What it did is it prevented the left from activating the state government to be their enforcement arm and to come after folks and force them to infringe on the tenets of their faith. And so just because I'm a business owner doesn't mean I don't get to practice my religious freedom. And that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court as well and was upheld. They deferred to the lower court ruling, and just stuff like that. But just seeing him work in a lot of big ways, you know, throughout my time of public service, and then I started getting that feel again, that pull and that call, like this is something I've got to do. And so my wife and I, for about the past year, have been praying about it. And every time we fleeced God, it would come back, this is what you're supposed to do. And I know it's a David and Goliath scenario. I mean, my opponent, the incumbent, he's no believer in term limits. He's kind of the poster child for why we need them. He's been there for almost 3 decades. I'm a big supporter of term limits. And he wants to run for another 6 years. He'll be well into his 80s, and he's ceased to represent me. And I think the good people of Mississippi, and especially Republicans in our state.
But your opponent, he is a Republican, so he's an incumbent Republican, Senator Wickers, and he's in an important position as well. He's he's on the Defense Committee, so I mean he's someone who honestly our viewers might not agree with many of his decisions. He's one of the foremost Ukraine hawks. He's spoken about sending long-range weapons to Ukraine, which could significantly escalate the war. So he's somebody that many within the the rightist parts of the movement today would consider someone who's not putting American values first. But that said, usually replacing an incumbent Republican is something that's done, with careful consideration. It's something that's, we've supported here. I've supported candidates that have pushed out people in the past. We just had on the guy that was running against Mitt Romney before he thankfully dropped out. But what is it that's calling you to run against someone who is an incumbent Republican who's been representing that your state for so long now?
Well, you touched on some of that. I saw in your monologue earlier about border control. He fought Trump on securing our borders. He did a whole lot of stuff Republican-wise. He's enmeshed himself in the World Economic Forum. He's voted for a lot of this left, the Biden, Pelosi, Schumer budget in November that has hundreds of millions of dollars for all this transgender and gender equity stuff and billions of dollars for Green New Deal initiatives. And he has been one of the most prominent voices when it comes to sending $150 billion plus to the Ukraine. He's one of a few Republicans that really pushed Biden to send cluster munitions, which most of your viewers may be aware. that they're banned in 200 plus countries, because afterwards it leaves just a devastating effect for the people left in that area, because about 8%, 8 to 15%, I believe, of the munitions don't actually go off when they hit. So he's not representing me, and he's certainly not representing anybody, I think, but the interest of the military-industrial complex, which you can take a look at his donations and his war chest and see where a lot of that money comes from.
You know, one thing I'll say, too, is I appreciate the fact that you're taking a humanitarian stance on it and not just a fiscal stance. It seems like too many Republicans, you know, are against escalating the war in Ukraine, which is a good thing in and of itself, but they just say, oh, we don't have the money for that. When in reality, I mean, I'd prefer that we spent a lot less money on many, many issues out there. My concern is that we keep dumping money into just bombs and escalating a war that seems aimed at not really securing peace for Ukraine, but destabilizing Russia from within, which, I mean, God forbid Russia become a failed state like, say, Libya. But that doesn't seem to enter into the calculus for a lot of these people who just say, no, let's bombs away, folks, no matter what kind of bombs they are, no matter who they hurt. So I appreciate...
He even said, he even said earlier on that don't even rule out the chance of our sons and daughters being enlisted into the conflict. They're playing a game of chicken with China and Russia, two of the largest nuclear superpowers. And it is a dangerous initiative to get into. Yeah.
I'm glad you have such clear-headed thoughts on it. So I want to get your opinion on something that's a touch controversial. I have to be honest. Right now, it seems like Republicans are in a little bit of a civil war over the primaries between Donald Trump and his many, 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 many challengers. And recently, there was an interview that was released where Donald Trump was speaking on the Dobbs decision and his hesitancy to support certain heartbeat measures. Now, this was something that's obviously near and dear to your heart. It's a key part of your political background and also your aspirations for higher office. So I want to get your thoughts. First, I want to play that video for you and the folks at home, though.
Mr. President, I want to give voters who are going to be weighing in on this election a very clear sense of where you stand on this.
I think they're all going to like me. I think both sides are going to like me.
What's going to have to happen
is you're going to have to... Listen, you're asking me a question. What's going to happen is you're going to come up with a number of weeks or months. You're going to come up with a number that's going to make people happy, because 92% of the Democrats don't want to see abortion after a certain period of time.
If a federal ban landed on your desk, if you were reelected, would you sign it at 15
weeks? Are you talking about a complete ban?
A ban at 15 weeks.
Well, people are starting to think of 15 weeks. That seems to be a number that people are talking about right now.
Would you sign that?
I would sit down with both sides and I'd negotiate something, and we'll end up with peace on that issue for the first time in 52 years. I'm not going to say I would or I wouldn't. I mean, DeSantis is willing to sign a 5-week and 6-week ban.
Would you support that? You think that goes too far?
I think what he did is a terrible thing and a terrible mistake.
Your thoughts, Congressman Eubanks?
Well, I have to say that I tend to disagree with him. A lot of that's political posturing. I think he's reading the winds and he's thinking, I've got to make myself look a little bit more favorable to the condition. But you have to come back to the underlying question, and that is, when does human life begin? Does it magically at 5 weeks and a day become a human life? At 15 weeks, 14 weeks and 6 days, was it not a human life? And it has been the basis of science and medicine that if you have brain activity and a heartbeat, you are considered to be a living human being. That's when they pull the plug on you if you cease to have those two things. And at some point, at a very early point in the gestation process, a baby in the womb has both of those things, and it is way before 15 weeks. So I would have to say I disagree with them on that, but I think a lot of that is just political posturing, trying to pick up more votes. Ultimately, when you get down to the, he's going to be our nominee. I don't see how he can't be. He's got the support. I've been a big fan of his for years. But can he beat the left? And this is going to be an issue that is going to bring female voters out. And so I think he's trying to give a very politically expedient answer without being nailed down completely.
It seems like within the pro-life movement, there's a real conversation, or at least an implicit conversation, over whether or not strategically we should be treating this as like football, a game of inches, where we take every incremental victory we can and celebrate it, or a moral battle that's truly black and white, all or nothing. as someone who would actually have a potential hand in crafting laws, should we hopefully get to a point where we're crafting nationwide legislation to put some limits on abortion, what is your guiding philosophy there?
Well, I think a human life is a human life. And I think every one of us have value, whether it's in the womb or in a nursing home. And when we start to devalue human life and you draw a line in the sand and you say, well, okay, at this side of the line, you're not human. You don't have any rights. And this side of the line, okay, well, I guess we can make a case for you. Show me a 2-year-old that can take care of themselves. At some point, you have to acknowledge the fact that it's a human life. And I think that when we as a nation start to devalue human life, we wind up in a place where we're capable of anything. It pushes us towards a precipice where you can murder 7 million Jews. You know, you can make a case for anything if you say that, well, they're not human or they're not valuable or they're not whatever. And I think that you are forced to take and look at the underlying moral issue. I'm 100% pro-life. I don't think it's our place to draw some line in the sand that really you can't make a scientific case for and say, well, you know, at 14 weeks and 6 days, you're not human and you deserve to die. But at 15 weeks, you know, I guess you're human and you can live. And so I think it's really a moral question. It's as a person of faith, it goes even deeper than that. And so I think that, you know, it would be something that I would rule on, but I would always err on the side of life. I believe that there is value in that. That's what separates us from the animals.
Very well said. So for folks at home, the congressman, maybe soon to be senator, has a hidden talent. We're going to expose that here on air, but you're going to have to wait until after the break to see it, so sit tight. We'll be back in 2. Welcome back to Nights with Chris Boyle. Back with us again is Congressman Dan Eubanks. He's the congressman from Mississippi who's running to be the senator from Mississippi at our federal level. And he has a hidden talent. He didn't share it with us, but I'm going to share it with you all. He's not just a legislator. He's not just a pro-life leader. He's also a musician. That's right, folks. Go ahead and take a look for yourself.
We do a lot with a little more than some can say. Keep your eyes here down on us, we're gonna set the pace. Come along with us, we're gonna pave the way for the USA. Our Mississippi, you know I never will roam Mississippi. You'll always be my home. I think we all could use a little brevity, a lot less self-serving servants of democracy. The answer for our country, well, it's clear to see. It's Mississippi. Our Mississippi, we're gonna light the way, Mississippi, to a brighter day. All you patriots out there in the US of A.
Congressman Eubanks, I love that. I absolutely love that.
You know, that was when I first ran for office back in 2015. And then I wrote another campaign song for the next cycle. I had some people say, I'm just going to vote for you to see what your next one's going to be. And it's funny because, you know, I do like to write music and I play a little bit of a bunch of different instruments. And so that's what I've done. I've actually, believe it or not, in this campaign cycle, we are recording a campaign album. And it's a bunch of songs that I wrote over the last several years. I'm always like sort of the guest performer at the Tate County Republican Club dinner. And we always give them a new song. We got one coming up in a week. We're going to be giving them a new song. And so we ought to put all those together and make an album out of it because they're all about what's going on in our country and just what we need to do as Americans to stand up and protect this great republic. So I didn't know you were going to pull that out.
That's awesome. So you're actually putting together a whole campaign album. Like, are you going to put it on vinyl, the whole shebang?
I will send you a Spotify link as soon as it's up.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. So I have to ask, in that video too, you were running with your brother. It looks like you have a really close-knit family, which is really, really awesome. Are you receiving a lot of family support right now? What is your campaign looking like on the ground?
Absolutely. I got a lot of family support, big family. We're all really close. And my brother was running for Senate and I was running for House. And so we were like, we'll do this together. We're going to take America back, but we're going to start with Mississippi. And so got a lot of support. One of the nice things, you know, the last 8 years serving in the legislature, next year I'll have the highest conservative rating in either chamber in the whole state, lifetime average rating. And so it's not just talk. I've taken the arrows. I've been in the fights. But I've also along the way developed a lot of relationships with a lot of the big grassroots organizations around the state. And they're all excited and on board. And so I'm really hoping that's going to pay dividends. But my family are my #1 fans, and they get out and work hard for me too. And so I'm blessed to have a good family and a good state and a bunch of good friends around Mississippi.
That's awesome. Tell folks at home where they can learn more about your campaign, where they can get involved.
Absolutely. And whether you live in Mississippi or not, I am not just running to represent my state, but I am running to represent every American who loves this great republic and fears for the direction that we're on. So go to eubanksformississippi.com, or you can just go in daneubanks.com. They take you to the same place. You can subscribe to my social media. You can see where I stand on all the issues, because I'm not afraid to take a stand and put it out there publicly and say, this is what I believe and this is what I'll fight for. And if you do feel the heartstrings to donate, every campaign runs on the back of money. And so I do need donations. So I'd love to count you on Team Eubanks, and we'll take America back together.
Awesome. Congressman Eubanks, hopefully the next time we speak, I'll be calling you Senator Eubanks.
That would be awesome, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And that's all we have for you this evening. Until next time, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyChrisBoyle. If you like the show, please send feedback to chris.boyle@OAN.com. I'd like to thank my production team, my director Jared, my editor Raphael, PAs Brittany and Josh, and all of you at home. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. And don't forget, go to HunterBidenForVP.com, HunterForVP.com. That's where you can get all your exclusive Hunter for VP merch. Don't miss it. Check it out tonight.